The truth is that I remember at a very early age I would stay up really, really late, or I'd sneak downstairs and I'd turn on the TV and I'd see these talk shows. And their guests would be people like Jimmy Breslin. You know, a lot of comedians, but every now and then they would just get a raconteur. A pure raconteur, and between two sets of commercials, they would just be allowed to wing it. And I remember even then being so moved by that. I was in Georgia, I was a young man. I used to go over to my friend Wanda's house and we'd drink lots of bourbon and we'd stay up on her porch and just tell stories all night long. And those nights are the most magical nights that you can find. I realized quickly that everybody wanted those nights to come back, that everybody was really sick of the internet. They were sick of television, they were sick of movies, they were sick of always having this electronic media that didn't feel alive. And then the idea of actually sitting around with a group of friends and just listening to stories seemed magical. The very first Moth that we did in New York City back in 1997 in my living room was just terrible. It was just deadly dull stories, and everybody was sort of trying to perform their stories, or they felt their stories needed to have a moral. People didn't really know what it was just to tell stories. And at the end of that night, everybody came up to me and said, I love this, we have to have more of this. And I realized, God, if you loved a night this bad, you would really like a night where we had really good stories. And within a year, we were having moths that were brilliant, that were, you know, blow away, brilliant, beautiful things. This idea of just pure storytelling is just so moving. It's so simple and so perfect. Clearly, people have been telling stories all along, but for some reason, the art of the raconteur has never been treated as an art. The idea of non-religious, secular stories just about your life seem to be discredited. Just in the last 15 years, it's just taken these leaps and bounds. You know, we started these little amateur moths in New York City 15 years ago, and folks would come up and tell kind of clumsy frat boy stories. And they still tell frat boy stories, but along with those are these incredibly beautiful tales from really a new breed of artists, the raconteur. I'm Dawes Green. Come to a Moth show, and don't forget to subscribe to THNKR.